sexy backbeat goes back to the beginning of the 20th century, and it was the characteristic of all of those streams of music that fed into and eventually created rock and roll in the 1950s. There were many streams of dance music that eventually amalgamated into rock and roll. Let's illustrate that. There was ragtime, early 1900s. Ragtime. You know, we've heard of the Roaring Twenties. One of the reasons they roared was ragtime. It was also called jig piano, and the name ragtime was a description of the rhythm. It was raggedy. It was off center. It was raggedy. And the spawning ground for ragtime was the houses of prostitution and gambling dens and drinking and taverns and bars. Ragtime. Here's Jelly Roll Morton. He's got his little rag. 2, 4, 1, 2, 4. That's a backbeat. That's as good of a backbeat as any rock and rollers ever had. That's just the old. And that was early 1900s, and it was the music they used to party with, drink and get drunk and commit adultery against your wife and all of that stuff. And then with boogie woogie, the blues and boogie woogie. And it featured what they called a walking bass. If a pianist was playing it, the left hand would be playing the boogie woogie, and just be going back. And then the right hand would be playing some melody going counter with that. Here's an example. This is Professor Longhair. That's a heavy rock music. That's heavy rock music. That heavy backbeat there, that heavy offbeat there, which we've found is a sex beat, sexy beat. Then there was jazz. Jazz. All of these styles of music came out of the whorehouses, taverns, and gambling dens. And there was this strong backbeat. Here's Kenny G, example of jazz. Emphasize the use of polyrhythms, the idea of playing the melody separate from or above the beat. And there was big band, swing era. Big band. Let's listen to this. This is big band, the swing era, the 40s, World War II. It's the same thing. Two. It's the offbeat. Western, honky-tonk. The Western crowd had their dance music. And of course, Hank Williams, the biggest names in Western music, country Western music. 2, 4, 1, 2. And you got that offbeat dance music. And it was drinking music. It was party music. It was cheat on your wife music. And so in all these streams flowed together eventually and amalgamated, some more than others, into rock and roll in the 1950s. Elvis Presley borrowed heavily from the blues, of course. And but he was influenced by all of that, and rock and roll has always been influenced by all of that. And there was Caribbean and Latin. Here's Iko Iko. The rumba, the salsa, the cha-cha, the conga, the limba, the mumba, the calypso, coming out of Latin America, Caribbean, and it had that heavy. You can't hardly trace that beat, but it's all over the place. But it's never solid. It's never a solid, just straight beat. Just offbeat, 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 and that has been the characteristic of sensual dance music all the way through the 20th century into this very day. The backbeat, the backbeat, the backbeat. But there's two other characteristics of worldly music, and that is a whispery, breathy style of singing. The microphone is held extremely close to the singer's mouth, and there's this feeling of intimacy that's created. And it's a sexual thing. In the book, The Art of Rock and Roll, Charles Brown talks about the vocal tricks that Elvis Presley used. He said by softening his voice for certain passages, he could create a personal effect which made the women in the crowd feel that he was singing directly to them. Here. It's never been done better. It's never been done better. That's that intimate. That's what made him so popular. That's what makes women still go crazy about Elvis Presley. Today. Yeah, old women too. It was sexual. It was sexual. Frank Garlock warns that there's 3 zones of human communication. The social zone, about an arm's length away where most of our conversation is carried out. The personal zone, which is a lot closer, that's used just for our close friends, family members, and then there's the intimate zone. Consider, just 2 inches or touching. That's the intimate zone. He says, when was the last time you had about a 4-minute discussion with a member of the opposite sex other than your wife or husband, only 1 or 2 inches apart? If a woman, pastor, comes up to you, not your wife, member of the church, she's up there about 2 inches from you, that's not right. That's really not right. I don't care how hard of hearing or half blind you are. That's the intimate zone. He said that conversation took place the last time you listened to any one of the popular secular or Christian vocalists who employ that breathy technique. It may have been a one-way conversation, yet it took place within your intimate zone. Your intimate zone was violated. Drinking in that sound, listening to that kind of sensuous music, not only involves entertainment, but feeding the heart, soul, and imagination. That's where the battleground is. Why do people become homosexuals? What they dwell upon in their imagination. Romans 1 says that. The world uses it to feed the flesh. Here's a Christian example of that. A very popular contemporary Christian musician singing about the Lord. You wouldn't hardly know it, would you? Sounds like her boyfriend to me. Sweet Surrender, that song is called. And so there's the breathy style.